Hi, and welcome to Bible Scribe. Today it is Sunday, and because of that, I started thinking about and wanted to do a small video on the Sabbath and what that means to Christians. And this does have a lot to do with beliefs of certain people groups like the Hebrew Roots movement followers in Christianity, and Seventh-day Adventists hold the Sabbath in high regard on Saturday. And so I wanted to talk just briefly today about the Sabbath, what it is, and what it means for Christians in the 21st century. So one thing that changed my whole understanding of the Sabbath was when I found and read the book of Jubilees. It is an ancient book. It was found as a part of the Dead Sea Scrolls, so we know that the Jews held it in high regard before the time of Christ, along with their scriptural writings, with the Bible that we have and the Torah. And so we definitely know it was important to the Jews and had authority, at least spoke to the belief system that they shared. So I wanted to share with you today what that says about the Sabbath. So here in my notes, you can see the book of Jubilees. This is chapter 2, verse 31, 33. And the Creator of all things blessed it, meaning the Sabbath, but he did not sanctify all peoples and nations to keep the Sabbath thereon, but Israel alone. Them alone he permitted to eat and drink and keep the Sabbath thereon on the earth. And the Creator of all things blessed this day which he had created for a blessing and sanctification and glory above all days. The law and the testimony was given to the children of Israel as a law forever and to their generations. So here the book of Jubilees clears some things up with modern belief systems that try to incorporate the Sabbath, because it talks about specifically that the Sabbath was given to Israel alone, and that the law and the testimony of the law was given to the children of Israel. And so we're going to go into a couple scriptures. So for instance, in Deuteronomy 5, where this is the Ten Commandments, the passage that contains the Ten Commandments, and Moses is coming down off the mountain with the Ten Commandments, and this is what Deuteronomy 5 says. The Lord our God made a covenant with us in Horeb. The Lord made not this covenant with our fathers, but with us, even us, who are all of us here alive this day. So this is Moses saying that God made this covenant with Israel. And even further, he goes to say it was not made with our fathers, meaning Adam, Abel, Abraham, all those patriarchs before Moses' time. The law was not made with them. The covenant was not with them. They didn't keep the Sabbath, but it was made with the Israelites of Moses' day, even those who are alive this day. Okay, so he's being very specific there. I don't think we even need to talk about that further because it's so simple and so plain, such a plain reading. Exodus 31, in chapter 31, verse 13, 12 through 14, really, the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, Speak thou to the children of Israel, saying, Verily my Sabbaths ye shall keep, to the children of Israel, all right? For it's a sign between me and you throughout your generations. It's very specific. God is specifically giving the Sabbath and the law to the Israelites, and it's not unclear. He's very specific. Hosea, now as time went on, the Jewish people, Israelites, they fell away from the law that had been given to them. They stopped keeping the Sabbaths. They stopped doing the things God had commanded. So in Hosea, there's a lot of the prophets, there's judgment. Hosea here says, and now I will discover her lewdness, meaning Israel's lewdness, in the sight of her lovers, and none shall deliver her out of mine hand. Judgment is coming, is what he's saying. I will cause also all her mirth to cease, her feast days, her new moons, and her Sabbaths, all her solemn feasts. Now, the moons being mentioned with the Sabbaths, just a side note, they calculated their Sabbath based on the moon. So when there was every 7 days, it was either a half or full moon or waxing, waning. And so that was how they calculated their Sabbaths. But he's saying all that's going to stop. He's going to judge them. And the fact is, he did judge them. In the first century, AD 70, God had destroyed Jerusalem. He destroyed the temple, It was totally ransacked and destroyed via the Roman armies in AD 70. As if it wasn't enough to say, I'm getting rid of and replacing your laws and your covenants with a new one, which is what we're going to read in Hebrews. He destroyed the temple, so it was absolutely gone after that. Hebrews 8, let's read this, talking about the first covenant and this new covenant. For if that first covenant had been faultless, then should no place have been sought for the second. For finding fault with them, he saith, Behold, the days come, saith the Lord, when I will make a new covenant with the house of Israel. So he's saying right here that that was going to happen, and with the house of Judah, not according to the covenant I made with their fathers, not according to the covenant that was made with Moses and the Israelites. In the day when I took them by the hand to lead them out of the land of Egypt. That's exactly what it's talking about. Because they continued not in my covenant. I regarded them not, saith the Lord. For this the covenant I will make with the house of Israel after those days, saith the Lord. I will put my laws in their mind and write them on their hearts. And I will be to them a God, and they shall be my people. And they shall not teach every man his neighbor and every man his brother, saying, Know the Lord, for all shall know me, from least to the greatest. For I will be merciful to their unrighteousness, and their sins and their iniquities I will remember no more. So what he's saying in verse 13, a new covenant he hath made the first old. Now that which decayeth and waxeth old is ready to vanish away. The book of Hebrews was written just within years before the destruction of the temple in AD 70. And so what the writer here is saying, most likely Paul, is that at this time, say this was 60 AD, he's saying this old covenant was ready to vanish. And it's because Israel didn't keep it. And so God is judging Israel, and he's remaking a new covenant with Israel. And in fact, the New Testament writers all talk about that the Gentiles who accept Christ will be grafted into that family. That new covenant will also be a part of what the Gentiles take part in. And it's not about the Mosaic law, it's about Jesus Christ. And if you read further in Hebrews, you'll see that over and over again. It's about Christ. He's the new priest. It's a new priesthood. The old covenant, it's old and it's vanished away because, number one, Christ fulfilled it because the Hebrews, the Israelites, couldn't fulfill it. They could not keep the law. And he knew that. That was why it was given. It was as a teacher and instructor to lead them to Christ. And that's the whole point. Christ in the end is the whole point. This new covenant he talks about is with Christ. And it's not that the intents of the law, say the underpinnings, the reasons, the principles behind the Ten Commandments was wrong. They weren't. And that's even part of Jesus' teaching, that the thought and idea behind the law is what we should be interested in and excited about and focus on. It's not the actual words of the law, it's the intent of the law, the heart of the law. If you read the Sermon on the Mount, it's very specific. It's not if you kill your brother, but if you're angry at your brother. It's like, it's more exhaustive now. It has more to do with your heart. And that's the difference. So a couple other things just quickly, but there's some testimony in the early church fathers that the Sabbath was not meant for the Christians after AD 70, after the old covenant was done away with. Justin in 150 AD, he talks about it. He says, he mentions Adam, Abel, Enoch, Lot, Noah, Melchizedek, Abraham. They kept no Sabbaths, but they were pleasing to God. He's making the point that you don't have to keep the Sabbaths to please God because you're not Jewish. You're not Jewish, and the covenant is over. All right, that's what he's talking about. He says, you fleshly Jews were commanded to keep the Sabbaths that you might retain the memorial of God. For his word makes this announcement saying that you may know that I am God who redeemed you. So he's reiterating that it was made between God and the Israelites. And the Christians did not see the need early on to continue that because it was not part of the covenant that they had with God. Tertullian, 200 AD. Here's another example. Let him who contends that the Sabbath is still to be observed a balm of salvation and circumcision on the 8th day teach us that in the earliest times men kept Sabbath or practiced circumcision. Again, Tertullian making the point that before the law was given, nobody practiced circumcision, nobody practiced the Sabbath. And so he's saying Adam, Abel, Enoch, he making the same point that Justin made, that these patriarchs did not keep the Sabbath, and nor is it important for Christians to keep the Sabbath, because that covenant was made between the Israelites and God. The Israelites broke the covenant, and God judged them and made it clear that the covenant was ended by fulfilling it with his son Jesus Christ and then destroying the temple in AD 70. And so I think it's pretty clear when we go through these texts, but I wanted to share this because the text of the book of Jubilees is what I first saw that made me question, the Sabbath and why do we celebrate it. And let me just state for the record that I think there's nothing wrong with enjoying a Sabbath day in your week. In fact, I think that's a good thing. It helps us focus on God. It gives us a time to relax and rejuvenate for the next week. And if you hallow that and make it holy for God, it's important. It's important to you, but it's not a requirement for you as a Christian to have a Sabbath day. It is not a requirement. It was part of the Old Testament covenant between God and Moses and the people of Israel, which they broke, and God fulfilled and is done away with. However, I see no problem with Christians enjoying that day as a part of their worship to God, but it's just not required anymore. And so that's pretty much it. I just wanted to make this short video available to you about the Sabbath, hopefully give you some more information than you've had before, but I'll try to put links in the description to everything that I have gone through, and so you can search it out for yourself and see these different scriptures and writings. But God bless you on this Sunday, and I appreciate you spending time with me. Please like and subscribe. It helps me with my channel, get more videos done, get out to more people. And I just want to see the Word of God go out and other people to understand it the way it's written. And God bless you.